Hello, hello. Welcome to the first episode of What the Candidate Says, where we focus on candidate experiences. And here I have my friend Berna Öney as my first guest. Welcome, Berna. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for participating and sharing my excitement and nervousness. So let's get to know you, Berna. Tell us about yourself, please.
I'm a data scientist with a PhD in political science. I have a solid statistical background. For more than 10 years, I've been publishing academic research based on statistics and data analysis. I've been also teaching statistical advanced method courses. So about a year ago, my journey started. I decided to switch from academia to private, specifically tech sector. And after doing some research online and talking to colleagues who have done the same transition earlier, I decided an institution like Loop would be the greatest facilitator. So for those who are watching and don't know what Loop is, it's an NGO which aims to increase women's presence in the tech sector. Besides providing professional knowledge and skills to land a job in the tech sector, Loop gave me the opportunity to be mentored by amazing women like yourself and to understand how to successfully navigate in the sector. In this 1.5 year that I've been part of the Loop, I realized I have many transferable skills that make the transition smoother. And when due to my academic background, I'd been dealing with explanatory models. But when I got into the data science business, I learned to switch my mindset from mindset to predictive models, let's say. But I see myself as a Swiss Army knife data scientist. I'm not building predictive models for machine learning, but I'm capable of answering business questions and explaining mechanisms.
That's really cool. And I saw you in action at a hackathon. I remember how beautifully you presented the complex data interpretation to the audience.
Thank you.
And for Loop, yes, it's a great community to be as a mentee or mentor. I love it. So you're in the process at the moment. You're in search for a data scientist role. Tell us about a bit more like how your journey is so far.
My journey so far has been all right. Of course, there has been ups and downs. First of all, I guess we should, acknowledge that this is a professional identity transition as well. So for those who are watching, or listening and considering making a career change, the first thing actually we need to really work within ourselves is this identity transition. And of course, no identity transition entails a perfect, smooth transition, but it's the one that I have been following persistently and decisively. I've been making applications to data science positions with a focus on customer insights and developing machine learning models since May 2022, I guess. Yeah. And it's been interesting to observe the fluctuations and the change in the market between this time period. I've learned a lot about the market and expectations of businesses. So earlier, before the recession, energy crisis, war in Ukraine, the Chinese COVID response that has severely disrupted global supply chains, there was variation. I mean, there were ads for junior, mid, senior level data scientists. As the year progressed, most job ads become for senior data scientists, and therefore the requirements were also much higher. Even for a limited number of entry or mid-level data scientists, the requirements were becoming a bit unrealistic. I keep hearing from my colleagues who have been in the sector for years now that is not just me perceiving things in that way, but they observe the same changes. And in order to understand, to grasp what's really going on, what could be the other factors in the market, I did some research actually, and I recently came across an interview with Stefan Lezic, who is a founder and entrepreneur working for various enterprises. And I realized his explanation of the current situation in the tech sector totally fits my own application interview experiences. He claims that these data teams are considered as appendices. So it means data competence and capacity are not fully integrated into the business decisions. So when a recession hits, obviously it is then easy to cut them. Firstly, cut those data scientist teams. Also, as the need of the market, as the company is growing and innovating, the organization wants to create a data team to produce high value activities such as insights and algorithmic products. However, the thing is that companies may not do it strategically in alignment of system complexity and business capabilities. And this may lead to under or over hiring sometimes. And the problem here is, from my perspective, these short-sighted tactical decisions and too little long-term strategic talent acquisition and planning leads for some companies to shoot everywhere without having a specific portrait of data scientists they have in mind. Then job ads given specifically for data scientists include data engineering, DevOps, sometimes even software engineering skills. And in my humble opinion, it becomes quite challenging to find a person who is an expert in all these fields and do 3 persons' job in one position.
Yeah, you actually pointed out so many interesting and crucial topics. Before we go on focusing on the data scientist role, I want to mention that the companies, for many different reasons, looking for mostly senior roles is a pain and also danger for the diversity of the teams, like team structure. Like, it's definitely not a long-term investment. You always need this variety of different levels. They bring different flavors to the teams. So yes, it's a pain from the applicant's side, but also a danger for companies. I just wanted to also tell my opinion in that aspect. But let's continue with the data scientist role. Like you also mentioned, like companies cannot really define what they are looking for, and they are asking for having everything, like have this, have that, and this, like 3-in-1 package. So what do you think should data scientist role be how it should be defined ideally, in your opinion?
I think the core ingredient of data science is to be able to combine statistics, coding, and creating insights from data. And I put a special emphasis on the statistical knowledge and being able to understand and communicate the actionable findings. Because I feel like coding is a skill that you can improve yourself over time. But this communication of the findings, you need more experience, and you need maybe to be more out there. That's why I think these two skills comes really handy, but not very available in the market, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree in that as well. Like, from candidate side, there should be some kind of challenge, some learning opportunity. Then you feel like, oh, okay, I'm excited for this role because I'm going to learn coding, for example. Yeah. You can have the same motivation for like improving your soft skills as well, but it becomes a bit more difficult. It's not that concrete in a way. But I agree that the distinction should be made clearly, and also like the companies should give more emphasis on the communication side, so they can get buy-in for data science projects more easily from their stakeholders, right? That's probably pain for many companies when they come up with some ideas, like they look interesting and fancy, and the production starts, the beautiful code is prepared, but then it's not actually adopted by stakeholders. You miss the important part of the chain.
Thank you so much for telling that, really, because I'm only talking from candidate perspective, and hearing, someone who's experienced and, having a managerial position also agrees with that. It's just amazing. So awesome.
That's the idea with this podcast. We try to make these unspoken points so everyone feels, like, oh yeah, it's not personal, it's not me, it's not my subjective opinion, but it happens for different reasons. Yeah.
Exactly.
I want to ask you about, like, talking about your interview experiences. So what do you find most interesting? It can be good or bad, like in the process.
Yeah. I cannot tell you one exact interview experience here, but over time, I managed to pinpoint the factors that determine my experience is good or bad. And I can talk about three important factors here. The first factor is about ghosting. So, as humans, our minds work in a certain way, like we cannot grasp all the dynamics around us in a particular moment, especially where if we're excited or anxious, like interviews. But once the moment is over, we're inclined to go back, think it over, and attribute meanings to what we've experienced, not just meanings, but also emotions. So let's say you pass a technical challenge and you go through several interviews, even successful interviews from your perspective, and you know the decision up to at the end of the day to the manager or a group of managers. Then you wait and wait, and at some point sick of waiting, and email to HR and hear nothing from the company, basically ghosting. And this is not uncommon, unfortunately, in my experience, and that is not professional. If I'm ghosted, somehow the image for that interview in my mind got tainted. Even if it was a great interview that I could express myself fully, I really felt the chemistry, between the managers and I, but it's lost from my perspective.
Again, the same thing, like this is not your personal, it's not about you. It happens to many people. It happens to me too. I like started normalizing that, oh yeah, of course, the recruiters, they ghost me. We have a call and they say, yeah, I'm so excited about finding you in opportunities. I'm gonna call you, I'm gonna write you, and it never happens. And I feel like, yeah, of course, like I don't have enough qualifications, obviously, for this and that. And then I start feeling little. So it's like back and forth. Like I need to regain my confidence and remember that it's not like I don't need the external feedback from people who don't know me enough. But yeah, it's about respect as well. Like we are all human beings.
Yeah,
And
we always take it for granted, really. That's the main problem, like the communication aspect and being a human. Like I don't expect maybe at the first stage of, application that to get a response. I mean, it would be nice to get if I'm not a fit from their perspective in the first stage, but let's say I'm not getting any, response. That's okay. But if you're going through a month, 2 months, 3 months period of having several interviews, I mean, you communicate people, you feel you know it is emotions there, and it's not just business, that it's not, I think, a cold platform that you only professionally, I mean, even in this professional setting, you communicate, you and that's why you expect something to hear from people.
definitely.
It's really respect, and that's why maybe most of us feel like, oh, it's about me at the end, because you've gone through so long period with these company, so then you take it as a self, as a self problem, I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not so difficult not to take it personally. That's why we
Yes,
just need to
exactly.
share our experiences and say like, oh, it's not me, it's not something personal. And I don't think it's also right to normalize it. It's
No.
yeah, we need care and respect as human beings, and if you are making promises, you have to hold them. Like it's not
Exactly.
good.
Yeah.
Second factor.
Second
I'm
factor.
getting more curious.
That's the prioritization of coding skills over other skills. I mean, I understand that the industry might be prioritizing how to build models rather than why we build models and what we want to do with those models. A colleague of mine says technology is always prioritized over science. So the main attention is always, or most of the time, always on, is the code perfect for production? I mean, I understand the code should be ready for production as much as possible. But first, don't we need to get the science straight? to maybe, rather than focusing on repetitive coding or optimized code, one might pay attention to how the data scientist approaches to the business problem. And this is also relevant to one of my earlier points, that integrate data science into the decision-making process. So if I've gone through many interviews, and if I feel like during these interviews, it's always about my coding, actually that's a bad experience for me, because the company try to understand, my perspective, my approach to the business problem, how I deal with maybe in emergency situations, how I react. But no, it's just, okay, if your coding is good enough, that's a killer, mood killer.
Yeah, it's not only mood killer, but it's great feedback for the companies, actually, like as candidates and also employees working there. Like, we stay in this vicious cycle if we don't change something, right? Like we say, like, the data teams are delivering a lot, but the things are not adopted. They are not being useful or meaningful. I wonder why. If you are not focusing on the requirements gathering and your communication with the stakeholders and making things meaningful from the first step on, like we just like focus on the technical things and we define ourselves as the technical teams, and forgetting that we are supposed to be the bridge between tech and business.
Yeah.
That's being narrow-minded, really, like seeing these in job descriptions and also interview process being heavily technical. That's actually sad. It's not sad for the candidates, but it's also sad for companies. Please change this mindset.
Yeah.
I have so much pain about this as a manager also, but let's focus on your perspectives and what makes things interesting in the process. The third factor.
The last and most important factor, also kind of relevant to the previous one, is to see the interviewer's preparedness for the interview. So interview process is seen as something that only the candidate should be prepared for, but it's not. I mean, it should be both sides that need to be prepared for it. I remember one good experience, one interview. The company had gone through my GitHub repositories, asked me very stimulating and challenging questions about my projects. And they were really curious to understand my mindset, how I approach business questions, how I deal with it, what kind of models I run, and why I choose particular models. So that was such a fruitful conversation. So that was the best experience ever.
That's really nice to hear. Like it should be, yes, it should go in both directions. It shouldn't be just like stressful and like frustrating for the candidate, but it should be fun, like kind of simulation of like getting on board and working together, so you feel like they care about you, your work, your like you said, mindset. I totally agree with that. And I find it also really complimentary when they say, I've seen this in your profile, and you feel like, oh wow, you did. I thought I'm just making my application, and you give like few seconds of looking at my CV and coming to the interview without knowing what I've done. That's also what we normalize, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, flexibility and preparedness, definitely. I mean, it's so obvious also. I mean, people think that we don't realize as candidates, but we do, when they have just one sheet of paper with questions and go through for each candidate. I mean, you see it. You see it, that you're just
your
standard questions.
motivation lowers if you feel like they don't really care about it so much.
Yeah.
I realize I use the word care a lot. I wonder why.
That's what's missing. That's in the sector. So maybe that's the reason.
Let's continue in this direction, like in the positive mark. Like, how can they make you comfortable in an interview, in the process, or like in a session? What conditions do you need?
The first thing comes to my mind is communication. So that's the team for this podcast. Like for you, care, for me, communication. So a genuine interest from company, in the sense that they have done their part of the homework and I do my part of the homework. So when companies know who or what they're looking for, it's not like they're shooting everywhere hoping to catch something, or throwing a large net, see what they catch if something useful comes out there. So if I get that true trust and honesty, I really feel that I really, if I feel really that the company is open and honest with me, I feel comfortable. If the people that I'm talking to disseminate trust, mentioning the possible hard times, not painting, everything perfectly, acknowledging potential challenges, and if they see the candidate, most importantly, as a long-term investment rather than a superstar data scientist, then I can be myself and manage my expectations about the company. So if it's just one word, one sentence, then I expect like a fully open, frank conversation.
That's fair. That's fair enough, and it shouldn't be that difficult to manage by companies, right? And I guess this is your advice to companies. Anything else you want to add? Any suggestions?
I mean, definitely for interviews, how to maybe behave during the interviews. But when it comes to application processes, maybe, I don't know, every company has their own unique expectations and processes, but I think a de facto suggestion would be laying ahead the steps clearly, and also asking for salary expectations in the beginning, not at the end.
Yeah, I also believe it shouldn't be like a game, like tell me your expectation, then I'm going to tell you my range, maybe not. Yeah, it should be quite transparent, but I believe it's also difficult for some companies because not all companies are able to make their salary ranges also internally transparent. If you're opening up to the new candidates, you are supposed to do the same to your existing employees, and it is not for some reasons possible for every company. But sometimes it happens that they know the range, they ask you first your expectation, and then they disclose it, and I'm like, I don't get the logic.
Yeah, I mean, the worst part is that, I experienced it, and several colleagues of mine experienced it. You spend 2-3 months during the interview process. No one asks you this question. And it's okay, you go through. And the last step, after talking to the CEO, I mean, after the last interview, you're asked to give a salary expectation. And then, I mean, a friend of mine just recently happened to her that she was rejected on the basis that her salary expectations too high, though she spent 4 months of interviews with this company. So this is not acceptable. Like, you can't take people's 3 months, 4 months of time and then say, oh, it's your salary expectations that we cannot have the budget for you right now.
So much waste of resources.
Yes.
Do you have any advice for the candidates, our main audience?
My humble advice would be, I mean, for those who are going through this phase of job search or consider to make a career change to this sector, please have a safety net. Like, find an organization or a group from which you can get support, both professional and emotional support. For me, I couldn't have done this without the guidance and mentorship from Frauen Loop, honestly. And another thing is perseverance, I guess, is the key term. But it's not just for, landing a job in tech sector or making crazy. Any job you do, any sector you're in, perseverance is always the main thing in order to reach your goals, I think.
I totally agree. It takes time, and we have to just be consistent and strong and share our experiences and feel like we belong to a community of people who are struggling for the same reasons. We are not alone. Thanks a lot for your participation and all these crucial and unique points. Thanks, and we see each other.
Yeah, thanks again. Yeah, so take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.